Hello, everyone. This is Greg Aden for another episode of Servant Leadership Podcast. And today I have a gentleman that I just met, to be honest with you, highly recommended. And I took a flyer and said, yeah, let's do this. I'm always interested in walking into a room and getting to know someone for the first time. So why would this be any different, right, Ted?
Perfect. Hey, networking makes the world go round. Who gets anything done without expanding their network?
Yes, sir. And I'm speaking of Ted Santos. He's coming to us from New Jersey. And as he said just off air, if there was a bridge between New Jersey and New York, he could walk to Manhattan. And most of you are going, why would I want to do that? And some of you are, gosh, what a great opportunity. You just you wrote a book recently, what entitled "Here's Why You Can't Find Love," and on off air you said, and it's to address something that's been going on for some time. But in your own words, why did you write the book, Ted? What's it about? And certainly, what can we do about the $600 billion gorilla?
So first, the book would seem counterintuitive because if you and I were in an elevator and you asked me, "What do you do?" I would say I'm in the business of producing miracles. And CEOs, they hire me when they're looking to create a breakthrough and they're not sure how to do it with existing resources. So I work with them to create disruptive strategies that turn into one, disruptive technology, or two, allows them to penetrate untapped markets, ultimately creating revenue that wasn't happening. And then I work with them to transform corporate culture to ensure the culture doesn't sabotage that breakthrough initiative. So that, I'm a business guy. I advise CEOs, other C-level executives. I've trained people who were VPs to become president. So I decided to write a book about relationships. And people would say, "Why are you writing a book about relationships if you're a business guy?"
Wait a minute, I know that answer.
Go
Because
ahead.
without relationships, we don't have anything.
That's actually a really good way to put it, but I saw a bigger problem, and it's to the question you asked. So corporate America is losing 600 billion, not millions, $600 billion every year in workplace productivity. Do you have any idea why they are losing $600 billion every year?
I'm going to give you two answers. They're both connected. In my humble opinion, doing what I do, it's lack of intentional communication or lack of leadership. And I'd also say that there's a lack of trust. We just simply don't trust one another as well as we could, or as well as we want to.
And those are all really good, but there's an organization called Life Innovation that sat down with CPAs and accountants and engineers, and they mapped out, and what they found, it was one word: divorce. So what another organization found that when people are going through divorce, their workplace productivity drops by 50 to 75%. So imagine you're a large corporation, a percentage of your employee population is headed for a divorce, another is in the middle of it, and another just came out of it, and their workplace performance drops. So we are running businesses as though it's not happening. We're just ignoring it.
Hmm.
And that's not counting another 30 billion that goes straight to the taxpayer, because divorce often leads to poverty, broken households, crime, all sorts of other things. And that's another 30 billion that we cover the taxpayer, which we probably cover the 600 billion also. Now, if you have a percentage, even if it's 10% of your employees who are dealing with divorce, and the divorce rate is about 53%, so it may be more than 10%, but let's just say 10, and they just aren't really doing their jobs well. So, what do you do when people are not performing well? You lay them off.
Yeah.
And you don't lay off the people dealing with divorce, you just random lay people off, which then creates financial problems in other households, which then leads to divorce. So it's like we're slitting our wrists while running a marathon. So, it's I wrote the book about relationships because, people say money is a big part of divorce. You hear irreconcilable differences, infidelity. I forget the organization. They did a survey with corporate VPs and up, and one of the number one skill all of those executives wish they were better at was conflict resolution. And I think a lot of people are not as good as managing conflict as they could be at work and at home. So we end up in divorces. And the other thing is, when I do my work with transformation, in the book, I talk specifically about we all have like this radio station going on in our head and we can't turn it off. So when someone wakes up and says, "Oh my God, it's Monday. I hate Mondays," or "It's Wednesday. It's hump day.
Yeah.
Thank God it's Friday." Well, you didn't create those conversations, even though you say them as though you made them up and they shape your actions. Oh,
Yeah.
it's Monday. Monday sucks. So how do you go? You get up out of the bed hating that it's Monday and you work as though Mondays are bad. You work as though Mondays are worse than Fridays. It's just a random day of the week. So we have this, and it's like a radio station. You didn't create that conversation, but it just plays in your head. And there are many other things that play in our heads that we don't control, but we inherited those things from society, and then those conversations or belief systems, they shape the actions we take or don't take. And that's a big part of, you could say, underperformance or lack of trust at work. You can't trust the guy who wears a bow tie. I once heard a guy say that. Can't trust people who wear bow ties and yellow socks.
I'm
Where is that
safe.
effect? Right. Well, you're not wearing a bow tie. Exactly. So I can
Nor
trust you.
yellow socks. But I want to not question something, but conflict revolution. I completely agree because there's, in my humble opinion, there's a few reasons why we aren't very good at conflict resolution. One, parenting. We never
Mm,
really ask the brother and sister to work it out. Instead, especially
right.
today, we're going to baby them and tell them to look something up on their phone or just agree to disagree. But I also believe conflict resolution would be easier, or we'd be more powerful at it or better at it if we had more empathy. Where is Ted coming from? Why does he want to wear a bow tie and yellow socks? I don't know. I'm not judging him. I'm curious. And then the other thing is that just why aren't we a little bit more curious instead of just pointing the finger all of a sudden? And I don't mean this finger, I mean the other finger. Especially when we get triggered in life, we automatically go to conflict, and we don't know how to resolve anything. But we're quick to anger, quick to judge, and then I'm just going to do it right here on camera. If we just wonder, where's Ted coming from, instead of judging Ted? And why aren't we more
Right.
curious? Why don't we care about other human beings in our life? But wait a minute, we did. We married them. We made a home with them. We created kids with them. We created
Well,
wealth with them. And all of a sudden,
right.
we don't know how to communicate with them?
My soulmate, the love of my life. Now,
Was. Yeah.
right. I mean, how do you go from that to divorce court? It just seems unreal, right? So you said something major, and all the things you said are really good and valid, including, taking a step back and taking a deep breath, asking the questions, being curious. But the real secret to conflict resolution, like the essence of it, has to do with that one word you said, which is triggers. Whether you believe Mondays are bad and Fridays are good, as simple as those things are, those belief systems can put you in conflict with yourself
Amen.
because you believe that. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you wake up believing Fridays are good and something goes wrong, it's like, how could this happen? It's Friday. Fridays are supposed to be good. Why? Now you're in conflict with yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So, and even if Monday is being flawless, it's like, how is this possible? Mondays suck. You've got to prove that Mondays suck. So, the essence of conflict resolution is that you haven't resolved the conflicts within you. So, someone says something and you interpret it in a way that has nothing to do with what they said, but it has to do with the way you were brought up. So if you were brought up to believe Mondays suck, or if you were brought up to believe Monday is just another day, and you make of Monday, uh, you get out of Monday what you put into it.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely.
So
And
and now you're with your spouse and saying, "Hey, honey, it's Monday. Whatever you put into it is what you're going to get back." No, Mondays suck.
yeah.
Now you're having an argument.
Yeah. And we have been triggered because of our past experiences, and we haven't.
Correct.
And I don't want to say you're weak because you haven't taken advantage of doing the work. But Ted, as a man who had to go through some stuff to find out why I'm really here, I mean, really here,
Right,
yeah,
right.
I didn't realize there were triggers. I didn't realize there was positive intelligence. I didn't realize there were simple ways to just let go of something that was not serving me, my relationships, and my work. But because I was all wrapped up in my work and I was very good at it, just ask me.
Mhm.
Very, very confident man, very arrogant. But at the same time, I was in a relationship that I thought was life changing. And it was for two reasons: the children, but I wasn't in
Mm,
it for the relationship as it turned out. And not a lot of angst, but I realized I had things in me that were growing that needed to be resolved, identified, and removed. And it's called doing the work. And
right.
I believe that I honestly believe that triggers is the crucial word or thing we could address. But a lot of people don't even know when they're triggered because they're just so used to raising their voice, elevating their language, walking away, slamming doors, and breaking all the promises that they made when they were standing at the altar.
Right. Well, one of the ways that people get out of things is say, well, I'm only human. This is what human beings do. And it's interesting. That's sort of like believing Mondays suck. Like, because you believe Mondays suck, so I now have to find proof on this Monday that it's a bad day of the week. And once someone says, "Well, I'm only human," you're supposed to be angry, it's supposed to be triggered, and if I don't do those things, then I'm not human. So I have to do these things.
Mhm.
And so we believe this is just the way life is, and you can literally untrigger your triggers. I know that's probably not grammatically correct to say it that way, but you can unlearn them. You can reverse engineer those triggers and no longer be triggered by them. Like it's just an event that occurred.
No doubt about it. And my training and the things I've gone through is a lot of it is positive intelligence. It's first of all, you've got to own them. You've got to recognize them and own them. I
Exactly.
I am triggered. Okay, well, what am I going to do next? An intelligent human being, because we are all human. That's a fact. So we get to own our emotions, and we get to pause, and then we get to step away, and then we get to say, do I really want to say this about Ted? And if I do, I'm going to win. Oh, wait a minute. It's not important to win. It's important to have a relationship full of trust and respect and love and admiration. Would I say that
Right.
to someone I love and admire? No. Okay. So continue to do the work and then acknowledge. And then you get to say, you know what? I need a minute and walk away. But that at the very least, you didn't make it worse.
Well, the thing is, you're really in conflict with yourself. I remember
Yep.
once with someone, she asked me, "Why do I always have to be right?" And I said, "Well, when you were probably around 5 years old, you gave the wrong answer and promised to not let it happen again." And she just lit up and she became animated. She said, "Oh, yes, I remember. I remember. I was 5 years old and I was in the dentist's office with my mom, and we're in the waiting room, and there are other kids in there with their parents. And the dentist comes out and he says, 'Hi, children. Who knows what this is?' And she was like, 'I was the first one. Oh, I know what it is.' And she answered, and he said, 'Wrong. That's not it.' And she said she shut down,
Mm,
and she was thinking how embarrassing, how stupid, how bad she looked in front of all these children. She didn't even hear what the answer was because she was so steeped into
yeah.
this interpretation, this like she made up a story about what happened. And now what she promised at 5 years old, I'll never let that happen again,
Yeah.
ever. I'm not, so I'd rather fight like an alley cat to be right than to experience that same thing in the dentist's office. And so It's what you said. Once you can acknowledge that that's the source, that's when you started this journey of I have to be right because there's this thing in the past that I want to avoid. Because if I give the wrong answer, I'm embarrassed. Can you guess what her occupation became as an adult?
A psychiatrist.
No, an attorney,
Oh gosh.
criminal lawyer, and
Yeah, even
she was brutal. She
I
fought for
imagine.
her clients. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
she was, she as a you wanted her as your attorney because she was going to be get in there and fight for you and be right about it, and she'd argue with the judges if she had to.
Mm,
But that didn't work in her intimate relationships, and it
no.
would kill them.
Well, it's funny. We are all trying to avoid something, but when we face whatever it is, we
Right.
acknowledge it and own it, and maybe even apologize to the people that were involved. But you may have a different background, Ted, when you were little, but I honestly don't remember much between 2 and let's call it 9. Didn't
Mm,
realize it, but my parents were at conflict the majority of those years, and a
okay.
divorce happened. They both remarried. And guess when my light bulb went on? When I now had a new stepmom, and very soon after I have a new stepdad. So now I have 4 influences instead of just 2. And
Right.
mom and dad seemed to be happy. So guess what? I was happy. And I went
Mm,
through my entire life saying, because I have divorced parents and they've remarried, I have 4 positive influences and you only have 2. And I made up
right.
a story that I was actually better because I had
Wow.
4 influences and you only had 2. But as it turned out, I was lacking intimacy because I only had X amount of intimacy to share and I was sharing it with all 4 and I didn't go very deep. It was,
Okay.
and anyway, that was part of the work I did. But my point is also when you know that you are just trying to be right and you're not behaving in a loving way to someone that you truly love, and we are in conflict with ourselves, that seems like a pretty rational way of saying, wait a minute, I'm going to say or do something, I'm in conflict. Why don't we stop? Why don't we stop and
Right.
say, you know what, honey? I'm going to say something I'm going to regret. I realize I'm in conflict with myself. I know this sounds really weird. People aren't going to talk this way, but guess what? What if we did? What if we paused and
Exactly.
walked away and then came back and started with these 3 little words? I'm sorry. And then would you give me another chance?
Well, that's you owning what owns you. So this woman, the attorney, before she knew, she was literally being a 5-year old. Here she is, 45 years old, having a conversation with me. And when she saw this possibility of being wrong, she would fight with the person because she was avoiding that
Yeah.
feeling. So, but here's the thing that you said. She literally made up a story about the way she looked in front of those people. So
Mm,
she was the conflict, the essence of it was really the story she made up about how stupid and embarrassing. And no one called her stupid. No one said she was embarrassing. She
of
made
course
all
not.
that up in her head. And that was, the catalyst for her not wanting that to ever happen again because of
Yeah.
the story she made up. So part of what I'm saying is most of the conflicts that people have, they're having conflict over something that never happened,
Yeah. I hear you.
which makes it really it's not insane because we're not given the tools. If we were given these tools at a young age to be able to navigate and manage, situations, we'd live in a different world. But at 5 years old, you're using what you have to interpret what's occurring.
Yeah, and you said something beautiful when we had started out the conversation about conflict resolution. That the skills that most professionals lack is the skill to resolve conflict resolution. Well, it's
Right.
hard to have a skill unless you have the tools. Why do you believe corporate America doesn't spend more time? And I don't want to call them soft anymore, frankly, the critical skills. Because if what you say is half true, meaning 300 billion is lost in the
600.
work.
Oh, sorry, right.
No,
300. You're
if,
right.
yeah,
300.
if just half,
The number is 300 billion. Sorry, how did I get to 600? But it's actually 300 billion. So if it's
300.
half, it's 150.
Okay. I mean, and then the 30 billion that we put onto the taxpayers when people are, the not both, sometimes both spouses don't end up with the same. It's split in half,
Right,
but not really. But anyway,
right.
there's kids, there's babysitters, there's new things that need to be done and expenses being spent. And I know, by the way, I've gone through a divorce, so I realize, and knock on wood, my relationship with my ex is good. My relationship with my son is fantastic. But even if half of it is true, my point is, why wouldn't we get it as leaders in organizations to stop? Just basically, this shit stops now. Do you need some help? Your divorce is not my business, but your performance at work relative to what you're going through at home is my business. So let's take care of people. Why don't we do this?
What do we reward people for? Financial reengineering, buying
Yeah.
back shares. So, but the other part is uh, the divorce rate in the affluent classes is very low, and it always has been. And most people think it's low because people don't, because of the money, and it's not. The reason why the divorce rate is low amongst the affluent is because they do a better job of finding someone who's compatible with them. So there's a guy, Thomas Stanley, who's actually done this research. He's the guy who wrote the books about Millionaire Next Door and all those things.
Oh, yeah.
He cited several cases where the guy, great career, decided to start a business and lost it all, sleeping out of the car, and the wife never left because and he interviewed them, and the wife said, I knew I chose the right guy. So we're sleeping out of the car. Robert Kiyosaki has that same
Yeah.
story that he lost it all sleeping out of the car, and his wife never left him. And we see where he is now, and he's quite wealthy. So, there are guys who started businesses that failed, had to go back and get a job, started another one, failed. So the people who stay together in the face of, you know, bad
Adversity.
situations, adversity, right? Uh, they chose someone compatible. So it's not the money that makes the relationship, it's the person. They know that person is right for them. So if you're looking at top leaders in an organization, they often fit into that class. And so they don't, it's almost like they're in an ivory tower, the ivy tower, and they don't see what's happening to the rest of the people below them who are going through the divorces.
Yeah. Well, I would comment on the affluent today. They stick with their partner more often. I would argue they may have had a divorce earlier, and they did choose the wrong person, but they weren't affluent. So the facts, I believe in the facts. I believe also that they may have had some relationships didn't work very good, and that's when they were perhaps building their wealth. But I know a lot of people in my circles and have been very successful with the same spouse. They've been very successful after the first relationship.
Yeah.
So
Second marriages have a much higher divorce rate, though. So a lot of people are getting married before they are affluent. So when I say affluent, they often didn't get married affluent. They had married in college or just after,
yeah.
and they stayed together. They just had a better handle on finding someone who was compatible. They did more due diligence, and I know that's a business term, but
Oh, no,
you
no,
know,
no. I completely respect what you just said. In fact, I'm officiating my wife's stepdaughter's wedding in July, and
oh,
I'm
cool,
asking them some really tough questions, not only because I love them, but I'm a
right,
coach and they've asked me to officiate their wedding, and it is absolutely due diligence. It is absolutely make sure. It's not sexy, some of this work, as you hopefully can attest, but it's
right.
critical so you can avoid conflict. And if you are in conflict, how do we resolve it? Because why? Because we're committed to one another. We want to be here.
So I exactly, and I know a guy in my gym. He's about early 30s. He's from India, engineer. And when he hit 27, he told his parents, I'm ready to find a spouse. And they went out to find his spouse.
Mm-hmm.
So he had what you would call an arranged
Arranged
marriage. And
marriage.
that seems people have a bad taste in their mouth about that. But who better to do due diligence? Your parents know you very well. They know you since you were born.
Better than you want them to know. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So what his parents did was reach out to someone and said, "We're looking for, this is our son, blah blah blah." And that guy said, "Here are a couple of families." And they did their due diligence. Both sides did the due diligence, and they were married, and they are very, happy. The divorce rate is lower with arranged marriages, and it
Yep.
doesn't matter if it's India, China, Africa, or countries in Africa,
Yep.
because you're as guys, we kind of know we can tell a woman what she wants to hear, just as a woman can do the things that a man wants, and then it's just all an act. But your mom and your dad, especially if you're a woman, your dad's going to ask this guy some questions.
Absolutely.
He's going to really dig in there and find out, who's this guy, who is he really. And in India, they do other, they don't just speak to the families, they do research. They find out who you are, they dig into you. As much as people hate that, but what you just said is more of what we need in the US. We need more parents intimately involved in the children's choice of a significant other, because that's the most important decision you'll make in your life, the choice of a spouse.
Yeah, and the other thing you said, the parents, I don't need them in everything they're doing, but if you're a little bit more curious, you're going to get more information about what's really going on in your child's life outside of what are they looking at on their phone. Because
Right.
it just blows me away how much time we're not even connecting because we're on our own phone, not even interested in or curious what our kids are doing. Ted, if you were to wrap this up in a way that our listeners, and I want to again say that here's why you can't find love. And it's really, I have not read it yet. I'll be honest, obviously. I haven't had time to read it since we've met, but I'd love for you to say, what are the top two or three reasons that we haven't talked about today that they should order your book for the simple fact that it would help their what? What two or three reasons why someone would want to buy your book?
Okay. So the punchline to the book, here's the reason you're not finding love, is you're looking for it. And love doesn't create a great relationship. Love is a byproduct of a great relationship. So if you have the skills and competencies to create a great relationship, you're just going to have an affinity. If you find someone who has the skills and competencies and you guys are compatible in money management, how do you resolve conflict? How do you want to educate and discipline your children? How do you manage your health, mental and physical health, sex, where you want to live? Like all those things, when they're compatible and you're having conversations where it's not that you're just living in an echo chamber and your spouse is just agreeing. Oh, I agree with this. I agree with you. Want their
Yeah.
perspective, which is not always the same as yours. But if you're a guy who wants to invest and your wife just wants to go shopping all day long every day, you're going to be incompatible
Mhm.
because the way she manages money is not the way you manage. So if she looks at the minimum, she wants to be a great saver. But if she also understands investment, she comes out of that kind of environment. The two of you are going to do a great job in building generational wealth because you're looking at, many facets uh, of investing income.
Sure.
So I would say stop looking for love and focus on developing yourself so that you have the skills and competencies to build a great relationship with someone. And so when you buy the book, that the book focuses on you. So to choose the right person, you're really going to have to know yourself, and not in a
Amen.
way you say, I know myself. There are
Yeah.
things that you don't know about yourself. Like take this, the woman who went to who's an attorney, she went to an Ivy League school, undergrad and law school. Very intelligent woman, except she didn't know that she didn't know The
Mm.
5-year old incident was the reason why she had to be right all the time. So stop looking for love, develop yourself. Conflict resolution really is important. And even in the workplace. So when I speak to companies about creating breakthroughs, one of the things that derails breakthrough initiatives is that it will put you in conflict. You're going to deal with problems. If you're creating a project, an initiative that's above anything you've done, outside of what you've done, you're going to confront problems, breakdowns, chaos that you've never seen before. And it's easy to just abandon it because that's going to put you in conflict with yourself.
Yeah.
So, conflict resolution is, working on self, getting at the source of why you respond to things a certain way. And that's indirectly in the book. That's why it's a journey of transformation for the person to read it. And if you are considering making that most important decision in your life, which is the choice of a spouse, I encourage people to get their parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles involved in that choice. Don't do it by yourself.
It's a brave request, Ted Santos, and I really admire you suggesting it. It might sound needy, creepy, weird, uncomfortable, but guess what? You really want to know yourself? Ask questions with and from people that know you better than you know yourself, especially at the young age. Really enjoyed my conversation with you, Ted. Really believe in what you say. I love how you connect the person to the conflict, to the solution, and it comes back to us as human beings
Exactly.
and the choices we
Exactly.
make on a day-to-day basis. Any final remarks you like to share with our audience?
One thing that would be helpful to many people is if you interviewed, let's say, 10 people, friends, family, even coworkers, and ask them about you. Just tell them you like to interview, and also tell them you are not allowed to interrupt them, correct them, or
Mm.
justify anything. You have to just take it all in and ask them some really insightful questions that they can tell you about you, and give them the space to be honest. Even if you don't like what you're hearing, it'll be one of the best things that you've done to have a better understanding of self and how you occur in the world.
It's funny you just said, how do I occur? I honestly, I created a tool when I first started Aiden Leadership back in 2014, and it was entitled, How Do I Occur? It
Wow.
worked. It put off people, but it was so telling because
Mm,
you had to, first of all, describe who you think you are, who you believe you
interesting.
are. When Ted
Right.
looks in the mirror, what are the things that describes Ted? Adjectives, short phrases, and then you have to do this first, then send this out to 10 to 12 people and ask them the question, how do I occur? And please be honest. So this wasn't being done in interviews. This was being done in sending this form and asking for it back. And then I
Sure.
change it and I change just the wording, but how am I perceived? Because I believe if you care enough, you'll ask the tough questions, whether it's in
Exactly.
person or not. And the outputs from this was everything was, wow, I didn't realize I blank, 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 blank. And now that you do, we still have a choice. Do I eliminate these behaviors that are off-putting to these people? Or do I say I don't give a blank? And for the most part, I want to have these relationships. In fact, these are the most important people in my life. That's why I sent them the survey, says the
Exactly.
person. But it goes back to what you and I would agree to. We've got to do the work on ourselves. It's a privilege. It's an honor to do the work, and maybe stop hating Mondays because Mondays are okay. Anyway, really enjoyed our time together, Ted.
Same here. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this conversation. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. Thank you.
My pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, Ted Santos again. Here's why you can't find love. And if you're challenged by the book title, pick it up and read it because I believe that you will be able to find love within yourself. And then and only then can you love another human being. I didn't say that. It's been said for generations. But go out and make yourself better. Do some work. Ask the tough questions. Love what you said, Ted. Interview, 10 people and Just shh, just listen. And that'll be
Exactly.
difficult for a lot of listeners out there. Thank you, Ted. I wish you the very best.
Thank you. You take care.
All right. This has been Greg Aden with Servant Leadership Podcast. If you liked it and you love it, share it. If you want to buy the book, I've said it 4 times now. Here's Why You Can't Find Love by Ted Santos. I'm assuming they can find it on.
Well, you can find it both on Amazon.com, and you can also find it inside of Barnes and Noble's bookstores as well as their
Beautiful.
website.
Beautiful. Well, I appreciate your time. Go out and keep doing what you're doing, Ted. We need more people like you in the world.
Thank you.
All righty. See you soon. God bless.
You got it. Take care. Bye.